Hi, good afternoon, Lynn. It's Andy Daster here, President of North American Insurance Services. Thanks so much for joining. You want to introduce yourself, Lynn?
Sure. My name is Lynne Timm, and I have worked with Andy in North American for 7 years. I'm now Vice President of Sales for the organization, and I also am an independent agent and work with North American to build my business.
Terrific. Thanks so much for the time. Now, you've gotten this great book of business, lots of clients, gotten this big job in the company, but that's not what it was like at the beginning. Can you kind of, real quick, take us a history lesson and go back to how this kind of got started for you?
Sure. So Andy, I was a captive agent for a large insurance company. I was a financial advisor, and I had worked there for 5 years, and I was more disillusioned every year with just the fact that I was working harder than ever. I didn't have control over the products that I sold or my commissions. My commissions seemed like they were going down every year, and I was working harder than ever. So I was relatively successful for that type of business, but I didn't feel like I was progressing, and I didn't feel like I was ever going to get to a six-figure income, honestly.
But being at a big insurance company's got some comfort, and it's being part of Big Brother. Must have been scary getting started being an independent.
It was, and when I first talked to you 7 years ago, I wasn't sure that I would be able to do that. In fact, I didn't even know much about going independent or what an FMO was, and I didn't know the first thing about, starting all over again as an independent. So, you worked with me and convinced me that you had talked to other agents and worked with other agents over the years, and no one had ever looked back after they made that change. And you were absolutely right. I mean, it was the best decision I ever made. And every year my income increased by a significant amount, and it's still going up. And I wish I had started 20 years earlier.
So what would you say are some of the big differences? I mean, okay, so we're all in agreement, better to have your own business and be an independent than captive to an insurance company. Okay, let's take that as a given. But for the audience that's listening, like, what specifically do you think are the differences between what you experienced over there and what you got being an independent?
Well, definitely more control. I can work as hard as I want or as little as I want. I chose to work a lot harder after I went through a divorce. So when I first started, I didn't have to work quite as much. So about 2 years in, I said, oh dear, my life situation is changing. I'm going to have to make more money. And I talked to you, and you gave me more tools to do it, and it's been great. But honestly, the support and the training is what made it work. Plus, I think that when I started 7 years ago, it was different than it was now. I mean, we were just selling Medicare and Medicare related products, and that's how I built the foundation of my business. And I still have all of those clients, pretty much all of those clients today. And we've just grown from there because I think North American has seen what's coming, down the pike as far as, where we were going with the Affordable Care Act, and we managed to stay a few steps ahead of that. We kept adding on products for the under 65 markets. So I increased my offerings into those lines of products and built my business on the under 65 market, which I really enjoy that, and learning marketplace and ACA, as well as adding on all the alternative products that have been crucial to all of us making a really good income.
You know, it's one of the challenges of being captive to an insurance company is you just have to sort of hope that they're keeping up with the trends in the marketplace and that they're staying one step ahead. And let's face it, rarely are they fast enough to be able to keep up. So they just keep doing their old thing and hoping and praying that it continues to work. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't, to the detriment of an agent. Anyway, so I want to get real focused here for a minute. You and I, we had a lunch event with a bunch of agents not too long ago. A lot of them brand new. They're either changing careers or they are trying to get their business up and running. And I heard people say, I need a way to accelerate my learning curve. How can I get into production selling faster? So let's talk about the Lynne Timm from 7 years ago. What would you say to her today as to how to get into production faster, better, more efficiently, whatever measure you want to say? What would be some tips?
Well, there's so many avenues, right? You know, the carriers offer opportunities during the open enrollment period. So I took advantage of all of that. North American offers training webinars every single week. We do training on social media. A lot of our training is done by our top producers. So I think that that's one of the things that really sets us apart is we're not a bunch of managers sitting behind the desk telling you what to do. I mean, we're out in the street doing it along with all of our agents. We figured out what works and what doesn't work, and we're sharing our knowledge, and it's not a competitive situation. I mean, we all want to help each other, and I love nothing more than helping a new agent figure out how to succeed in this business because it's such a great business and there's so much opportunity. I mean, we can offer a solution for almost any client need. So whether it's over 65 or under 65, you know, we've got something to fill the gap or meet whatever their needs are.
And that sounds great, but if a new agent were here, they'd probably say their biggest concern is having enough prospects, having enough people to talk to. So you mentioned capitalizing on all of the different opportunities, whether it's North American or the carriers. Tell me a little bit about, again, if you were a brand new agent, if you were you from 7 years ago and you were starting today, what would be some of the first things that you would do to try to take advantage of those opportunities or whatever it would be?
Yeah. Well, I think there's even more opportunity today than there was 7 years ago. I mean, we've all become so much more savvy on social media, right? So one of the easiest things to do is just to start a Facebook business page. There's no cost to that. I also probably get more results from my personal Facebook page because I have 500 friends and ex-coworkers and people in all sorts of industry that know me and have worked with me over the years, and they know that they can trust me. So they see my ads and they see my news articles that I post, and then I share my business page articles to my personal page, and you know that gets results. That doesn't cost me anything. And the other thing too is everybody that you know is a prospect. I mean, everybody needs health insurance, and it's so easy to start the conversation. It's, you know, if somebody asks you what you do, well, you know, I specialize in health insurance. Well, everybody needs it. So, you know, what do you do for health insurance? Are you happy with it? And, you know, so many people now don't get coverage through a group plan like it used to be historically. So there's so many different ways to get health insurance, and we, you know, can provide all of those avenues. And it's just easy to start a conversation. But in addition to that, we all have centers of influence. And for me, one of my most successful were all the financial advisors that I worked with. And then CPAs, you know, people in that type of business were great referral sources for me. And then I was in advertising for a long part of my life as well. So I still keep in touch with a lot of those people. Well, they all need insurance. A lot of them are self-employed. My dog groomer is my client, my hairdresser, my doctor. It's easy to do provider marketing through your doctor. I mean, if we all have doctors, start the conversation with them, put some cards in their office. So there's so many ways to sell our product and do what we do.
And you know, there was another person at that same agent lunch event that walked up to me and said, well, do you guys do leads? And I think that's one of the things that new agents are getting bad information from other FMOs on. They're somehow being convinced that the way to become successful in this business is to go out and get leads, you know, whether it's mailings or whatever other ways that they're doing it. But that doesn't work anymore. You know, the response rates are terrible. If they're looking for a shortcut, there really isn't one. All you have to do is leverage your network. You know, sometimes I think agents forget that social media is also social networking, and they forget that that's a great way to get their networking started. It doesn't cost them anything. It takes some elbow grease, but that they should have plenty of. Great stuff, Lynn. Anything else in closing?
No, I just think, you know, don't be afraid to do it. It's not as hard as you think. We have all the tools and resources and support that a new agent needs. Great training, great support, and you know, if somebody really wants to be in this business, we can show them how to be successful.
Great stuff, Lynn. Thanks so much. Appreciate the time.
All right.